So there are other ways to enter MIDI when you don't have a MIDI keyboard available. So let's take a look at how you can use your computer mouse and keyboard to enter MIDI parts in non-real time. So I've got a default set open, and I've already gone into the browser and set it up to load an instrument. So let's go into Instruments and Impulse, and let's click select one of the presets there, and let's drag and drop it onto our first MIDI track. So if we want to enter notes with our mouse or with our computer keyboard, we need to have an empty clip to enter those notes into. And we can do that by selecting a clip slot here in Session View and then right-clicking on it and choosing Insert Empty MIDI Clip from the contextual menu. Now you'll notice that when this comes in, it's by default 1 measure long. And if you want that to be longer, we can go ahead and click the Duplicate button, which would take it from 1 to 2, and then from 2 to 4, and so on. Or you can do the same thing by clicking the loop brace here in the MIDI editor and using the key command to duplicate, Command D on a Mac or Control D on a PC. All right, with the right length set, I'm going to go over and I'm going to enable the preview switch here in the left side of the piano roll, which right now is just listing the names of our drums because we've got a drum instrument on this track. But I'll go ahead and I'll enable that. And now all I need to do is double click with my mouse where I want to add a note. And I'm going to add the kick part here to start. So I'll double click. And you'll notice that the note that I entered is the same length as the current grid setting. So if that isn't what you want, you can delete this note by double clicking it. Or with the note selected, you can go ahead and just hit your delete key. And if you want to change the grid setting, remember that you can right-click here in the MIDI editor, and you can choose a different grid setting from the contextual menu. Now, the shortest rhythm that I want to enter here is an 8th note, so I'm going to choose that. So now I can go ahead and I can click in my kick and snare part. Now, you'll also notice that all of these notes that got entered were entered at the exact same MIDI velocity. So to control that, we'll need to enable our computer MIDI keyboard, which we can do by clicking the related button up here in the control bar, the one I'm pointing at, or you can use the key command, which is M. Now with that enabled, remember that we can set the default MIDI velocity using our C and V keys on our computer keyboard. C will take it down a velocity of 20 and V will take it up. And you can see what it's going to be by observing this display right down here at the bottom of Ableton as you press those keys. So if I press V, it looks like I've increased that up to 120, and if I press C, it's taking it down 20 at a time. Let's take that back up to 100. Okay, so the next thing I want to do is I want to add a bunch of notes on the hi-hat. I want to add 8th notes going all the way across. And the easiest way to do that is going to be to use my pencil tool. The pencil tool is right next to the computer MIDI keyboard button in the control bar, and we can either click it or we can use the key command, which is the letter B. Now with that enabled, I can click and drag to add notes at the default length here. So I'm going to disable the preview button because I don't want to hear this as I drag these notes in. Now you'll notice that as I went across, as I was holding the mouse down, my hand also dipped, and I ended up adding notes on other pitches that I didn't want to add. So I'm going to go Command Z to undo that. And now I'm going to go into Preferences, and that's Command comma on a Mac or Control comma on a PC. And I'm doing that to just show you that there's a new option here on the Record Warp Launch tab, and that's under MIDI Note Drawing, and that's for draw mode with pitch lock. So if I enable this and escape here from Preferences, as long as I'm holding the mouse down, after I click a note, it won't let me add notes on any other step. So now as I click and hold, as I drag across, it doesn't matter where my mouse is at, it's all going to come in on the same pitch. Now I ran out of room there with my mouse, so I'll go over and I'll add the last note. If you need to delete a note, you can just click it with the mouse, and if you want to drag delete some notes, you can do that as well. So I can click and then just drag as I'm doing that, and I'll get rid of all those notes. Now, if you do want to kind of add notes freehand, you can also do that with Draw Lock On. And you can do that by holding down your Option key as you click and then drag across, and you'll notice that I can do a bunch of different notes. But what I actually want to do is just add those notes all the way across. Okay, so if you're stuck somewhere without a MIDI keyboard, there are plenty of ways to enter MIDI notes so that you can continue to work on your projects.